Hi everyone, welcome to today's session on ACC Bridge. Today we'll be going through the Autodesk Construction Cloud Bridge tool, which allows for files and folders to be copied between different ACC projects. We'll be giving a little bit of a background to Bridge, going through the setup of the outgoing project, as well as the setup of the incoming project, how to establish a bridge between projects, whether it be from a project in your own account or within another account, within another administrator, as well as the actual strategy for sharing files and folders. And finally, bridge automations and how they work. Okay, so a little bit of a background to Bridge. As we mentioned, it allows for files and folders to be copied between different ACC projects. The key word there is copied. So these files shared between projects are copies only and are not the original. This process is not intended to replace the creating, sharing, and consuming packages workflow within ACC, but is more intended to be able to share files between different projects, which is not possible without the Bridge feature. Now, from what I understand, this is available for Revit files from 2023.1 and beyond. So if you are looking to share Revit files between projects, you'll have to be in that version or later. Bridge can have connections between the projects through things called automations. And these need to be set up as part of the bridging process. Okay, before we do any bridging between projects, it's important to establish the outgoing folder. So I'm going to head over into a project here that we've set up called ACC Bridge Project A. So in here, it's up to you how you would like to establish how you share files and folders. But it's really important to have sort of a clear sort of methodology to this, because when you start sharing, you are potentially sharing a lot of information that could even be sensitive for the project. So, as I mentioned, it's at your discretion, and it will depend on whether you're sharing with within your own workspace or to other consultants. You can choose to share, say, your current models folder, which will share every current model within that folder, or you can set up dedicated spaces for sharing. In this case, I've set up a documentation folder here within our BIMCO space as the consultant here, and we'll be sharing the files contained within this folder. Okay. Secondly, at the receiver's end, and we've got here ACC Bridge Project B, they'll be wanting to establish, again, a very clear space of where files are coming from, so that it doesn't get mixed up what's an actual current file for the project and what's being worked on in this project space, and what is actually coming through from a bridge. Now, we're recommending that you stay away from the shared folder, and that applies to both the outgoing and the incoming projects, and instead create a very clear and dedicated space for your bridging activities and files. So in this case, we're actually going to create a subfolder here, and we're going to name it Bridged Projects. Okay, so it's really clear that this is where the bridged information comes from. We're then going to add another subfolder with the title of the project that the information is coming from. And third, we're going to add another level, which is who's the information coming from as well. So in this case, BIMCO. So that gives us a really clear space to reserve for incoming information, so it can't be mixed up. Okay, next we're going to establish a bridge between projects. Now, if you have a project that is within your own account and you are the administrator, it's actually quite simple. You can head over to the file or folder that you'd like to share, and you can click 3 dots next to a folder, for instance, click share to another project, and then tick on automatically sync updates to target project. Okay, then you'd need to pick the target project, in this case, project B, and then you could go through and pick the exact folder of where that should be, information should be shared to. Okay, we're not going to do that just now, because I do want to show you another method for when this is within another account that is not part of your workspace and you are not the administrator. So in order to do that, what we'll need to do is head over to the Bridge tool within ACC. And then we'll need to bridge a new project. So we can do that using the button down below here. And we're going to type in who we would like to share this project to. Now, you'll need to get in touch with the administrator at the other end, or whoever you're emailing first, because you do not want to send this without their notice. They need to understand what to do next. Okay, so I'm just going to send it off to this user at BIMCO. You may include a message. It might be worthwhile including in your message what this project is intended to be bridged to, because at the other end, at the receiver's end, they will have an option on where to bridge that to. Okay, so that's now sent an email off to user 02, and they'll get an email stating that there is a bridge request. And I'm going to bring that email up, and it looks like this. Okay, so this user would like to bridge projects. You can then click on that link and choose your project to bridge. So we'll go through and do that. Okay, next we would like to pick our project. So again, as I mentioned, ACC Project B. This user does have a selection of which project to bridge it to at their end, and we're going to bridge those 2 projects. Okay, so that bridge has now been established. And if we head back to the projects, we can go into the Bridge tool, and we can see that there is now a bridge project within Project B called Project A. And within this project, if I hit refresh, in Project A, we have a bridge to Project B. Okay. All right, so our bridge is now established. How do we go about sharing files and folders? Now, it's really important to note that when you share individual files, that they will not be synced at the other end. And I'll show you what that looks like now. So if we head over to our files section here, we're going to open up our documentation folder. We have a PDF here, which we're going to share using the 3 dots here. Share. Now you'll notice that when we pick another project, this is now grayed out. And you can see the prompt there, sharing files with bridge automation is currently not supported. So the keyword there is files. Please select folders instead. Okay, so if we were to send that over, we can pick any project. We can go to our bridge projects here. It tells us a little summary of what's being shared. We can click share. That's now going to share just that one file, a copy of it, over to project B. Okay, so that's not going to go anywhere until this user picks where that needs to go. So if we do a refresh, you can see there's an incoming message. This user can review that share. They can see what's included in that share. Then they can add that to their project, and they can select where they would like to send that, that particular file. In this case, we're going to drop it into our BIMCO folder here. All right. So that file is now being copied across to our project. There is no connection to it. If that file's updated in project A, there's nothing is going to happen at project B. So it's just copying one file between projects realistically. Now, if we were to say share a folder though, how on the other hand, if we go here, we go share to another project, we want to automatically sync. That's important. If you'd like to automatically sync, you can then go through and pick even the target folder at the other end. So we can actually specify because that bridge has been established. Okay, so heading over to project B, we can see within bridge projects, we now have a documentation folder which has been shared, okay, which is updating. Okay. Next, we want to have a look at, say, sharing a Revit model. So Revit model behaves a little bit differently. In project A, we're going to share the entire project folder. Now, with Revit models, you certainly want to share the folder. So if you need to put the current model in a different folder just for sharing, you can do that, but just be wary, you are creating extra steps in administration for yourself if there is a change. So if we share our current models, because this is our own space, we're comfortable to share the exact current model. We're going to send it across to our bridge project here. It's the current models folder. That is going to share that model across to this folder here within that bridge project space. Okay. We will need to review it and add folder automation to project. Okay, and select where you'd like it to go. So in this case, bridge projects again, all the way down to BIMCO. All right, so now we have a copy of current models within project B. All right, so in here, current models, there it is. And those files will then populate into that space. Okay, there they are. They're now loading. All right, now, because there is a connection between the two, they can update, but they'll only update once the files over here are published. Just remembering that these files up here on ACC are the published versions of the file, not the latest synced versions, okay? So any changes that you make, you will be working away in Revit. You'll hit sync. The receiving folder will not see those changes until they hit publish. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second once we have a look at automations and how to update a Revit model. Okay, I just want to show you first these indicators that are now displaying here. We have these indicators which show when there is a bridged connection and whether this file is an incoming file or an outgoing file. So we can see here, this has a little arrow to the left. This indicates this is a file that is coming in from somewhere else, and this is the project. Okay, if we head over to the other project, if we'll have to hit refresh, you can see these have a little arrow to the right, which is an outgoing file or folder. You can see the same indicators when you go to the top project folder. You can see whether it's got a little out or in symbol there. Okay. Okay, let's go and have a look at automations and how they work. So if I click on our bridge tool here, we can see our bridge projects. Now we're familiar with outgoing and incoming. Now if we click on, say, the bridge project here, you can see that there is 2 active automations on this particular project. And if I click that, it will show the 2 automations that are currently running. Now, as we mentioned before, you can't see any files here because you can't have an automation on a file. An automation can only be on a folder. Now, also important to note, it's only the contents, the direct contents of the top level of the folder as well. So if you share a folder, it will not share the files contained within the subfolders. So just important for when you're setting up the structure of your sharing ecosystem. Here we've got these two folders or file that are currently have automations. You can pause them if you like, or you can delete them as well. Pausing will mean that any changes aren't going to come in to your environment. Okay. So let's have a look at changes. We're just going to drop in firstly a file into our documentation space here. So I'm just going to bring in revision B of our wall types sheet here, just a PDF. Click done. That's processing. That will then update there. Okay. The automation will recognize that a new file has been added or changed, and then it will subsequently update the receiving folder. You can see that's processing there now. Okay. Now, if I update a Revit model, and we mentioned that we have to publish, so I'm just going to sync this model. I have made a couple of changes on the model, and I'm going to publish it as well. Close the model, refresh the space, identify the model that needs to be published, and click publish. Okay. Now, that model is going to be published up to project A. We go to project A, current models. That will then change its versioning. So I think it was 5, now it's up to 6. You can see that that's now processing that file. Over here within project B, we go into our current models, you can see it's now processing. It's version 2 in this space, and that's because we've only shared it twice. So it's not the same version between the two. Okay, so it's important to note that. Now, lastly, in terms of linking, when you're actually linking that file in, if we open up our project file, which I've already closed, so we'll go to project B, and we're going to link in that file. And while I'm here, I'll just mention that these files are copies. So if you have a look within the Bridge Projects folder, you will not see the file. Okay, these are not files that can be opened directly by the receiving project. Okay. So I'm just going to go into the current models for this particular project, which is project B. And we're going to link in the file. Now, to link in that site file, it's your usual process. Link Revit. Now, this is where traditionally you can't link across projects. So what you can do is you can instead now go to your Bridge projects, find that file. It's a copy of the one from that other file, from that other project. And I'm going to bring that in by shared coordinates because I know I've set that up already. And this is actually coming from Desktop Connector. Okay, it's a copy that's hosted within Desktop Connector, and that copy is then able to be linked into your project. like so.